Okay, so now that you have opened up your classroom to become more paperless, and students are sharing documents with you, you have now got a document list that becomes overwhelmed with student documents. And how do you manage all of that? Just like students turning in paper documents to your desk, you got to have like piles to put them in or paperclip them together and keep track of which ones you've looked at and which ones you haven't. So here's just one technique that I've used to manage documents that students are sharing with you. So at the end of class or in the middle of class, when students have shared their documents, I tend to pull up my document list so I can see who's actually correctly shared their document with me, and I'll often just put this on the overhead so they can check and see that their document is indeed shared with me and in the list. So then what I'll do, if it's before the next class starts, is I will come through and check all of these off and move them to a collection that I've created for just that purpose. So over here you can see I have a communication arts class collection, and under that it has a communication arts students work. I also have some other folders for organizational purposes, but this is the main one. And there I've kind of got another subfolder, and if you remember last time I showed you how to make subfolders for each of the periods that class is there. And then I've also created some that are for specific projects. Kind of the method that's worked best for me is to keep them by period, and so even within that period you'll notice there's yet another subfolder for a current project that's being worked on. So these papers that just got turned in, for example, I need to come up here. Once I've checked them, I'm going to organize them and put them into that collection for the third period class research project. And I just apply those changes. And you'll notice as soon as I do that, the extension or the folder name appears at the end of that, so now I know they're marked for that. And at the same time, remember, we don't need all of that stuff showing up in our home list because it'll just become overwhelming. So at the same time I have those clicked, I come over here to more and I say don't show those in home anymore, and whoop, they all disappear from my home list. But they're still all here in this list, showed up here with others that I'd previously put in there. Now, another thing that I do to organize these things or to keep track of them. These are, for example, all the students who've turned in their assignments for that period. And now I need to kind of manage, have I looked at them, not looked at them, graded them? And you'll notice that they're bold when you haven't opened them yet, when you haven't physically looked at them. These I had opened and looked at, but the technique that I use for that is using the star feature. I don't tend to use the star over here for like searching because of course there's so many things that get starred with the method I use. If I'm trying to find something more or make it important, I'll put it in a collection specifically for that importance, or I'll just search up here for it. But I use the star feature, let me go back to that folder, to indicate that I've graded that paper or looked at it and graded that paper. So if I open that paper up, it takes me to that paper, and then I can read through that paper. I can make my comments, and if you haven't messed with that feature yet, I can say this phrase right here and I can go up to insert a comment, or if you notice the Control Alt M is the shortcut for that, so you can use those keyboard shortcuts if you want to. And I just insert a comment here and I'll say, looks good or needs improvement or whatever it is I want to say, and I can add that comment to the document. Once I've done all of my comments and grading, then I can come up here and I can put a star on that, and that lets me know that I've graded that document. So then when I close it and I go back to my list in just a moment, as soon as it refreshes, it'll put a star on that one. And so as I work through the list, I can quickly tell who I've graded and who I haven't. So that's the technique that I use for organizing student collections when they come in, and then keeping track of which ones I've graded or not. At that point, like you can see there's other assignments down here. What I might do is click the select all button, and then I could move them to a different place so they're not currently in that same place, or I could actually take this whole folder and move it to a different place. It kind of depends on how you deal with your stacks of things, remembering that you have an unlimited storage space for student documents, so you never really have to delete them. You can just move them out of your active search or active folder if you wanted to kind of think that way, or you could just keep them eternally in there and just have all kinds of stuff. Well, that gets kind of cluttered, so you might want to create like a old work and current work or something like that. This has been working for me pretty good.